I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, he came to my ears and whispered, "Please be easy on me." He thought I'm Mike Tyson and I will follow his script 40 seconds after I broke the clown's jaw. We are boxers, not content creators. I wish that I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw, I didn't want to put him down early. You all know I was handcuffed. I don't want to say anything that I will be regretting in the future, but all I can say now is the first 20 seconds was enough for me to end Jake Paul.
It's like this is the clearest fixed fight you're ever gonna see. Look at this guy holding his hands up and watch. Watch this. He literally shows him his chin and he goes down. It's so fake. Look at, he's got nothing. It's like a guy who just learned boxing.
The day after I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on. I remember one thing. I had a very hard moment in that part of my life. But I assure you, in that age, I could have put that clown in the first round, but I sold my soul. And I'm
a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. And then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists.
Look, this heavyweight situation is exposing uncomfortable truths that nobody wants to deal with. The noise you're hearing right now, it's specifically designed to bury the questions that keep surfacing.
That guy did great for someone who's been boxing for like less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember what happened in the Tommy.
He lost a close decision, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
Time for some brutal honesty here. Jake Paul never actually constructed a legitimate boxing career. What he did was engineer a carefully managed system, and those systems function perfectly until reality shows up uninvited. When Joshua decided to treat this like an actual fight instead of playing along, everything crumbled instantly. That breakdown reveals exactly what we were really watching this entire time.
Oh no, I don't remember the fight that much. I kind of blanked out a little. Listen, know what I remember? Coming back from the first round, and then the next day I remember Jake is doing some kind of, I don't know, what was he doing at the ring?
Oh yeah, a little bow at the end, he bowed.
And that's the last thing I remember. But the day after the fight, the day after, I woke up and told my wife, "Why did I do that?" I don't know. I just don't know what the hell goes on.
What did you think of Jake's power, man, when you were in there?
I don't remember it, but my body was really sore. Yeah, my body, my chest, my stomach and stuff was really sore.
Sure, everyone talks about courage, and stepping through those ropes definitely requires heart, but courage without intelligence becomes a massive risk, and networks spend millions protecting themselves from risks, not enabling them. This is where things get disturbing, because somebody greenlit this matchup, fully aware of the skill gap, the danger, the inevitable outcome. When authorization happens, accountability follows, and right now that accountability is getting shuffled around like a hot potato. Notice how every discussion keeps getting redirected toward heart instead of decision making.
He's also nuts, right? Just the fact that he's willing to fight the two-time heavyweight champion, former Olympic gold medalist, a guy who's gigantic in his prime, built like a Greek god. And you're gonna stay, and he's a one-punch killer.
Here's what Joe Rogan picked up on during his analysis of Joshua's performance. The injury is significant, absolutely, but the precedent it sets is earth-shattering. Once you allow a manufactured persona to get tested by genuine elite-level violence, you can't pretend you didn't see the results. Every influencer bout moving forward exists under Joshua's influence, and that influence is massive and merciless. Promoters understand this completely because their safety net of uncertainty just evaporated. The performance ceiling isn't mysterious anymore. We witnessed it firsthand. It's made of concrete, and somebody's face just met it at full speed.
You could only take so much. And at a certain, like that one that he got from Joshua, ooh, You know, say if you have like a punch card, you have like so many punch that you can get in your life, which I believe you do. I believe there's a certain number. That one was like 10 bunches.
Yeah.
That was like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of concussions in that one punch.
Sure.
That was real damage. Like,
What really gets under my skin is how inevitable this outcome was. Not necessarily the knockout itself, but this exact type of aftermath. Boxing's past is packed with cautionary tales about entertainment crossing dangerous lines and paying steep prices later. These situations follow the same pattern every single time. First comes the laughs, then the intrigue, then the worry, and finally the remorse. We're currently stuck between worry and remorse, and the remorse stage is when the real information starts leaking out as people begin creating distance and revising their stories. Nobody can convince me that all the decision makers were clueless here. That's frankly offensive to suggest. These are seasoned professionals who completely understand impact forces, bodily damage, and probability curves, which means this gamble was calculated and deliberate. Calculated gambles require acceptable losses, and I can't stop wondering who was supposed to take that loss, because this clearly wasn't the intended visual. Not this brutal, not this conclusive. That gap between what was expected and what actually happened is usually where the truth starts bleeding through. The Mike Tyson memory situation still bothers me deeply because memory issues aren't casual observations. They're warning signals, and warning signals don't get mentioned by accident. Whether the cause was physical trauma, mental pressure, or something more complex, it created an atmosphere of unease that never got properly addressed, just covered up with hype. Joshua's knockout just excavated that buried concern, and when old concerns resurface, people start demanding answers about who was responsible originally.
In pain?
Yeah, but
Does
it's
it
not
hurt
gonna, it's not from like talking.
Talk to me about what your jaw feels like, because you got
It's like a baseball in there.
two
then-
plates,
It just feels like
4 titanium plates.
4 titanium.
I'm convinced the professional fighters are more rattled by this than they're letting on, because they analyze footage completely differently than casual viewers. They don't see entertainment, they see timing patterns, distance management, and fighting intention. What they witnessed was someone discovering too late that the fundamental rules had shifted, and that discovery is absolutely terrifying because it exposes how fake that safety net really was. Fake safety nets destroy careers without warning. Joe Rogan's entire demeanor shifted for a specific reason, and it wasn't about moral outrage, it was about recognition. He's witnessed enough trauma to identify when something transitions from competition into genuine danger territory. His retirement suggestion wasn't really about Jake Paul personally, it was about preventing that future news story that everyone dreads. If you believe that worst case scenario hasn't already been war-gamed by executives, you're being naive, because contingency planning for disasters is literally their job. Right now, we're watching damage control unfold in real time, and damage control always appears composed on the surface while chaos reigns underneath. The longer it takes for straightforward explanations to emerge, the more questionable everything becomes, because transparency should be simple if the situation was genuinely clean. Instead, nothing feels clean here. Everything seems calculated, managed, and filtered, which never indicates good things. Joshua's function in all this fascinates me, not as either a villain or a hero, but as a catalyst. He didn't manufacture this problem, he just exposed it way ahead of schedule, and premature exposure is dangerous because it eliminates control. Control was the actual valuable commodity in this entire operation. Control over opponent selection, control over storylines, control over results. Joshua stripped away that control with a single punch, and control doesn't get relinquished quietly in situations like this. Some people will dismiss this as typical boxing where injuries are normal and everyone should move on. That's intellectually lazy thinking, because context is everything. This particular context is saturated with marketing promises that claimed authenticity without actually earning it. When marketing gets too far ahead of reality, somebody ends up paying that deficit, and this time the payment came in bone and metal. That invoice is currently being circulated, with everyone hoping someone else will cover it. Jake Paul isn't some evil mastermind. He's essentially a product, and products get pushed to their breaking point. When products fail, manufacturers blame consumers, consumers blame circumstances, and circumstances blame random chance. Chance becomes the perfect excuse. Except chance doesn't organize fights. People do. People make choices, and choices create consequences, even when nobody wants to claim ownership of them. There's a chilling effect building that you can already feel developing. Fighters will hesitate. Athletic commissions will scrutinize harder. Insurance companies will increase premiums. Suddenly, that easy money doesn't seem so accessible, and when easy money disappears, loyalty follows right behind it. That's precisely when narratives start evolving, and I guarantee some of the earlier praise will quietly transform into strategic distance. The audience isn't foolish either. They might appreciate spectacle, but they value genuine authenticity, and Joshua delivered authenticity in its most unfiltered form. Once audiences experience that level of realness, again, it becomes nearly impossible to sell them diluted versions. That creates serious problems for anyone whose business model depends on blurring those lines, because the line just got re-established with permanent marker.
I'm just hoping after this Floyd fight, maybe we can have a rematch. He did well, but I want to try it again.
Is that something that you would be interested in terms of righting the wrong?
I keep replaying this scenario mentally, and each replay makes it worse, because this wasn't simply a fighter getting injured. This was an entire business model colliding with reality at maximum velocity, and when that happens, people don't rush toward truth-telling. They rush toward protecting their leverage, and you can sense that protection happening right now in all the gaps, in everything that's not being discussed. If everything was legitimate, there wouldn't be hesitation, hedging, or carefully crafted statements. Instead, we're getting volume, loud distracting volume specifically designed to drown out those persistent quiet questions. My honest assessment, uncomfortable as it is, goes like this. Jake Paul never developed a boxing career. He constructed a controlled environment, and controlled environments only function until someone refuses to participate in the control. Joshua's refusal wasn't heroic, it was standard, which is exactly why it created panic. Standard behavior threatens systems built on exceptions, and the moment Joshua treated him like any regular opponent, the entire experiment collapsed, revealing exactly what this whole operation actually was. Everyone keeps mentioning bravery, and sure, entering that ring requires courage, but bravery without wisdom just creates liability, and liability is what networks insure themselves against, not what they enable in fighters. This is where my discomfort intensifies, because someone approved this arrangement knowing the gap, understanding the risk, anticipating the potential outcome. When approval exists, responsibility exists. And that responsibility is currently being actively avoided. You can feel it in how every conversation keeps getting steered back toward toughness, rather than judgment. Don't misunderstand me, the injury is important, but the precedent it establishes matters infinitely more. Once you allow a brand to test itself against elite-level violence, you cannot unsee those results. Every future influencer fight now exists in Joshua's shadow, and that shadow stretches far and shows no mercy. Promoters know this because they just lost their plausible deniability. They can no longer claim the performance ceiling is unknown. We saw that ceiling, it's concrete, and someone's head just hit it at full force. What disturbs me most is how predictable this entire situation was. Not the knockout specifically, but this exact type of fallout, because boxing history is filled with moments where entertainment pushed boundaries too far and paid consequences later. These moments always follow identical patterns, starting with laughter, progressing to curiosity, then concern, and ending in regret. We're currently positioned between concern and regret, and the regret phase is when authentic stories emerge as people begin distancing themselves and rewriting historical timelines. I refuse to accept that everyone involved was naive. That's insulting to suggest. These are experienced professionals who understand force dynamics, damage potential, and risk assessment, which means this gamble was intentional and calculated. Intentional gambles imply acceptable losses, and I keep questioning who was expected to absorb that loss, because this clearly wasn't the intended appearance. Not this decisive, not this final. That disconnect between expectation and reality is typically where truth begins leaking. The Tyson memory issue continues bothering me because memory problems aren't throwaway observations. They're warning flares, and flares don't get launched accidentally. Whether the cause was physical, psychological, or something more complicated, it added an unease layer that never got resolved, just buried under promotional noise. Joshua's knockout just dug up that buried grave, and once graves get reopened, people start asking who put the body there originally. Professional fighters behind the scenes are more shaken than anyone realizes because they analyze footage differently than regular viewers. They don't see drama, they see timing, distance, and intention. What they witnessed was someone realizing too late that the rules had fundamentally changed, and that realization is terrifying because it means the safety net was imaginary. Imaginary safety nets end careers abruptly and without warning. Joe Rogan's tone shifted for a specific reason, and it wasn't moral judgment, it was recognition from experience. He's seen enough damage to know when something crosses from sport into warning sign territory. His retirement plea wasn't about Jake Paul specifically, it was about preventing the next headline that nobody wants to see. If you think that headline hasn't already been imagined by executives, you're kidding yourself, because they game out worst-case scenarios professionally. What we're observing now is reputation management happening in real time, and reputation management always appears calm on the surface while frantic activity happens underneath. The longer clear answers take to emerge, the more suspicious everything becomes, because clarity should be simple if everything was straightforward. Nothing about this feels straightforward though. It feels layered, negotiated, and filtered, which never indicates good thing. I keep returning to Joshua's role, not as villain or hero, but as an accelerant. He didn't create this problem, he exposed it faster than planned. And exposure is dangerous because it removes control. Control was the real currency here. Control over opponents, narratives, and outcomes. Joshua took that control away with one punch, and control rarely gets surrendered peacefully afterward. Some people will say this is just boxing where injuries happen, so move on. That's lazy thinking because context matters critically. This context is soaked in marketing language that promised legitimacy without earning it. When marketing outruns reality, someone pays the difference, and this time the bill came due in bone and metal. That bill is now being passed around hoping someone else picks it up. Jake Paul isn't evil, he's a product, and products get pushed until they break. When they break, manufacturers blame users, users blame environments, and environments blame chance. Chance becomes the convenient scapegoat, but chance doesn't schedule fights. People do. People make decisions, and decisions have consequences even when nobody wants to own them. There's also a chilling effect approaching that you can already sense building. Fighters will reconsider, commissions will ask harder questions, insurers will raise concerns. Suddenly that easy money doesn't look accessible, and when easy money dries up, loyalty evaporates. That's when stories start changing, and I guarantee some previous praise will quietly transform into distance. Fans aren't stupid either. They might enjoy spectacle, but they respect authenticity, and Joshua delivered authenticity in its rawest form. Once fans taste that again, it becomes hard to sell them watered-down version. That's problematic for anyone whose business relies on blurring lines, because the line just got redrawn with permanent ink. This story feels unfinished to me, like we're only seeing the sanitized public version while the messier conversations happen behind closed doors, where blame gets negotiated and narratives get aligned. Those private conversations shape the future far more than any press conference ever will.